Hi, shalom friends. You know, medicine is a very exciting field. There's so much improvement and constant innovation that literally from year to year, things change. We have new drugs, we have new methods, surgeries that used to take weeks of recuperation. Some of them actually be done in a clinic, and the very same day you go home. Pain management, all kinds of remarkable improvements in preserving life, enhancing life, saving life. All of this is found in medicine. There are also disciplines within medicine. So most of us in America are familiar with what is called Western medicine. And there's something which many of us have heard about, Chinese medicine. Now, they're both medicine. They've both been in practice for many decades, and they both have science behind it. But they're very, very different disciplines. And until 100 years ago, these two disciplines never met. So the Chinese would look at Western medicine, hearing about some of the ways they treated and consider it barbaric. And Western medicine would hear about certain herbs or needles or something like that. They would consider it magic. And then, over the past century especially, things have opened up, and we began to incorporate something of Western medicine in China, and China in Western. And though they still remain two distinct disciplines, there are many places where they can overlap. I remember the time when President Nixon visited China in 1972 for a little bit more than a week, and the press, and mostly it was all visual, the TV, they followed him everywhere. And one of the most remarkable points of his visit was when he actually witnessed a surgery being done where the patient was completely conscious, and all of the pain management was done with acupuncture. And suddenly it wasn't magic anymore, it was medicine. And that sparked a renewed interest in acupuncture until today. Today, insurance will cover many parts of acupuncture, and a competent surgeon and certainly a competent doctor will be open. He'll say, this is the way we treat it. You might want to consider herbs, you might want to consider acupuncture, but if that doesn't work, we have this, etc. So where am I going with this? Well, let me tell a short story. It's a synopsis because there's a wealth of information that goes behind it. But through this story that I will relate to you, you will see where the point that I will conclude with. A little bit more than 200 years ago, there was a very great doctor, truly a great doctor. I think he was connected to nobility. He was an advisor or the head doctor of the King of Prussia. His name was Dr. Ahron Gordon. Now, I might be mispronouncing his last name, but that's the closest that I could figure out, Ahron Gordon. Now, he obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, he was not a practicing Jew or an observant Jew. He was legally Jewish, a brilliant mind, and a sensitive soul, and together it produced a wonderful doctor. Being that he had this wonderful soul inside of him, though by and large his time was occupied with nobility, very rich people, if you were fortunate enough to make an appointment with him, he was first and foremost a healer, a doctor, a saver. And if there was an emergency, if he saw someone in need and he was capable, he would help. The story goes that once he was accompanying some royal family on a visit. They were doing traveling, and he was traveling through Poland, and he saw maybe Warsaw, one of the big cities, and he stayed in a very, very fancy hotel, so to speak, and he was on call. And as he's going for a walk, a delegation of some Jews see him. Dr. Gordon, Dr. Gordon. He looks at them. He knows he's Jewish, but that's about it. Yes. He said, we have a very important member of our community, one of the leaders. He's very, very ill, and we need the greatest specialist. Can you please visit him? Well, it happened to be that there was like a little bit of time that was free, and after all, he is a doctor, and besides, he is a Jew. Why not do a favor? So he visits this man. When he sees the man, he sees he's deathly ill. And after taking inventory of all of his symptoms and history, he says, I'm really very sorry. There's nothing that, as a medical professional, I could help you with. But I could prescribe certain medicines that might take away some pain. And he left saddened that he couldn't help. And of course, those people were already, giving up. Anyway, the doctor continued with royalty. Maybe a year later, or a little bit less, he's with a different member of the royal family, and again he's in the same city, and as he's walking and strolling, he can't believe his eyes. Or actually, he does believe his eyes. He sees the man that was deathly ill, that according to his medical professionalism would not have lived more than a couple of weeks, is walking around. He looks very healthy. So the doctor runs to him and he says, my good man, do you recognize her? Yes, you're the doctor. He said, which other doctor did you go to? I must meet him because he obviously gave you a medicine that I'm not familiar with. So he smiled. He says, the doctor that I went to is not a medical professional at all. Dr. Gordon says, and who is he? He says, he's my rabbi. He's a very saintly man, Reb Dov Ber of Mezrich. And when I was brought to him in a carriage and told, he was informed that the great Dr. Gordon himself said that there's nothing that medicine could do, the Rebbe looked at me and he gave me a blessing, and anyway, here I am. It's a miracle. Dr. Gordon was just blown away, actually. How could a rabbi who's a non-professional in terms of medicine heal a person? And there was no herbs, there was no surgery. So he was so intrigued that he took a leave of absence, and instead of going on a vacation, he traveled to Mezrich. Again, I'm skipping many, many beautiful details, but it is reported that when he came to Reb Dov Ber of Mezrich and asked Reb Dov Ber, how honored Rabbi, were you able to heal this very sick person? His answer was, you are a doctor of the body. I am a physician of the soul. You only know how to remedy the body, but I know how to remedy the soul. By remedying the soul, the body was healed. This was something so powerful that the story continues. He tendered a resignation as a royal physician, became a student of this Reb Dov Ber, and in Hasidic literature is known as the tzaddik, the righteous saintly doctor, Reb Ahron Gordon. And indeed, he was a Rebbe. He had Hasidim and he taught, but he also never gave up his medical professional training. So half the day he would spend in prayer and study and teaching, and the other half was available as a doctor to heal people. So the story goes that he's finishing his prayers. It's late morning, and he's now known as the Holy Doctor, the great Rabbi Saint Doctor. And as he's putting away his tefillin, the door bursts open, and a lady who lived not that far from him shouts, Doctor, Rebbe, I need your help desperately. And he immediately turns and says, what do you need my help for? He says, my husband is deathly ill. And she begins to describe what she hears, the way he's breathing and his fever, all kinds of stuff like that. And we need you. He's really slipping in and out of consciousness. Please, doctor. The The doctor heard that and said, this is a very serious case. And instead of just dropping everything and taking his doctor's case and running out, he puts away the tefillin. She's looking at him and she's saying, Doctor, it's urgent. We're talking about maybe minutes. Yeah, I'm coming. He puts it away in the cupboard, and then he opens up the closet. Okay, which coat should I wear? I have this coat and that coat. She's looking, and she's hysterical. Doctor, we need you now. And he says, I'm coming. Yes, I'm coming. And then he looks, he finds his hat. He takes out a hat brush. This was too much for the lady. And she lifts her hands and cries, Rabbi Shalayla, Master of the Universe. If the doctor can't help because he's too busy, please you help. When the doctor heard that, he quickly put on his coat. He ran with her to the house and was able to prescribe some life-saving medicine. When the doctor came back, there was a student that witnessed this and did not understand what he had just witnessed. The doctor's heart was sensitive to pain and suffering. He was a saint, a tzaddik. Every person's pain and suffering touched him, especially if it was a doctor, because that meant it was... And he was procrastinating. He was figuring out what coat, what hat, where's my bag? I mean, this had never happened before. So he said, Rebbe, the man needed you right away. Why did you take your time? He said, I'll tell you. When she described what she saw from her husband, I realized there was nothing I could do. This man was essentially like what they call a death rattle. He was dying. Running over would have done nothing. I understood just from hearing her that we need a miracle. We needed God to intervene. But she was looking to me as a doctor. As a doctor, there was nothing I could do. So I deliberately waited. When I heard her cry, Rabbeinu Shalayla, Master of the Universe, please, you could help, you could save, you could make the remedy, then I was hopeful that God would hear her prayer. And miraculously, there'll be enough life to this man that I could sustain and nurture. And sure enough, that's what it was. So until I heard her cry earnestly to the Almighty, asking for God's help, I knew medicine would not help. But once I was confident that God heard her prayer because it was so sincere, now medicine was effective. So now you know why I told the story. Some 2.5 years ago, we have this sickness called illness or pandemic, endemic, call whatever you want. It's pretty bad. It was called COVID-19. And what did we hear? We heard that it's a really rough time, medically speaking, so we have to find a solution, a medical solution. What will be the medical solution? The medical solution will be to create a vaccine. And in the meantime, those that are sick, the medical solution will be all kinds of therapy and ventilators. And what did we see? We saw that it was not completely effective. Well, it continued. We have to follow the science. In fact, someone who's now the President of the United States used that as a mantra, follow the science. Never was there a true mention, let us pray to God. And now we're already two years and more. We have vaccines, we have boosters, we have therapies, we have methods. It's all science. It's all medicine. I'm not the medical professional to tell you what works, what doesn't. I'll leave that to the professionals. But what I could say is, I believe God is waiting for mankind, especially the leaders of mankind, to say, Rabbeinu Shalayla, Master of the Universe, We're trying our best to use medicine. We need you to send us healing. We need you to send us wisdom and insight. We need you to stop this. Once God hears that from them and from me and from you, then whatever the scientific community could come up with, whatever the medical community could come up, then we can hope and pray and be assured that it will be effective. But we need that cry. So I hope you'll join me in asking Hashem, the healer of all flesh, to send a complete healing to mankind, because life and death and health and illness are in His hands. When we're able to truly affirm that and acknowledge that, then God will send His divine blessings through the medical professionals and through governments and through people, that we will be healed and we will be able to serve God with joy and in the greatest of spirits. Shalom.